Hi, ThatPaulGuy. One of the things I wanted to try to do was when I'm making these videos, I wanted them to be able to process a little quicker, maybe render a little bit more quickly. And I was getting, I'd imagine somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 2 times the length of the video to get it to render or to process. And to me, that's pretty much unacceptable. So with the prices of processors coming down, Intel's got their new processors out, AMD has new processors out. I already had an AMD processor in my computer, and I wanted to see if it was worth it going up just a little bit more in the processor power to be able to get enough, squeeze enough out of it to make it worth it. So what I decided to do, instead of going full bore and going with the 2700X, I went one step down. I decided I was going to get an 1800X, which was last year's model, and maybe overclock it. When I got to the store, I noticed they had 1700Xs. Well, I know I can overclock a 1700X to be the same speed and everything as an 1800X. It's like free money, and right now the 1700X is only about $159 at your local Micro Center. Maybe not your local Micro Center, but you should be able to order it. And they do have some of them in stock still. So that's what I did. I went ahead and got a 1700X. I'm going to overclock it. And yes, it's not quite where I wanted to be with the 2700X, but it should give me a good boost in speed, good boost in power, and I've got 2 more cores to work with, so we'll see how that goes. But I'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and swap it out, show you what I did, or show you what I'm doing, and then I'll go ahead and run a couple of benchmarks and I'll show you those results. So what I did was pretty easy for the most part. You can see right there's one of the screws, there's another one, and then underneath that you'll go ahead and undo those, pull the processor out. There's a clip that's an attachment. All you have to do is unclip that, pull it out, reverse the whole process with one little caveat. And that caveat is that bracket right there. You want to make sure that that's seated, or you hold that in place while you go ahead and screw those screws back in to hold down the fan and the cooler. Because if not, if you don't take this side cover off and hold on to that plate, or put that plate back in while you're screwing it down, that drops inside your machine, and if for some reason you are careless enough to leave anything on or anything connected power-wise, this is where I say unplug it, turn it off, do whatever. At least turn the switch off or unplug it completely. If you're careless enough to leave that attached, or if you're not paying attention to it, you're going to drop that down inside and you're going to have some issues. And what I did do is go ahead and use the same cooler. No harm in that. The 1700X didn't come with a cooler, so I went ahead and put the same one that I had the 1600 with. Not a problem at all. You can also do a water cooling, but again, you're going to have to make sure that back plate's in place. The one thing I will remind you is when you go to put a cooler back on, do not skimp on the thermal paste. Get the good stuff, or at least spend a couple of bucks. Don't decide you can't do it without, or you can do it without thermal paste. That's just not an option. You need to use it. So after running a couple of benchmarks, you can see the 1700X is in red as we go through these. Anywhere from a little bit of a gain to quite a bit of a gain, but the most important thing is rendering these videos now becomes much quicker, and that was my end goal. So there you have it. Changing out the processor does speed it up a fair amount. It was well worth the extra money that I paid for it, or the money that I paid for it right now, without having to upgrade everything. And I think when I get the 2700X, I probably want to go ahead and upgrade the motherboard and all that as well. So I think it was worth it. It is making the processing on the videos a little bit quicker. I was able to overclock it safely, and she's running pretty good. So my overall experience here was pretty good, and it wasn't too difficult, but like I said, you want to make sure a couple of things you take care of is you want to make sure that back plate that goes on where the cooler has to attach to, you want to make sure that's in place pretty well. The processor, when you pull the processor out and you put it back in, I didn't show this mainly because of lighting and how tight of space it is to get in there, and I don't have a good space to do it. But there's a little arrow, and it will line up with the one you take out. So you want to pay attention to that. If all else fails, there is a little marker so you can tell where pin 1 goes. But overall, I was pretty satisfied with how well it went. It only took me maybe about an hour to do. Don't skimp on the thermal paste. Go ahead and use that money. It might cost you as much as 10 bucks. It'll save you a whole lot later, because when you start, especially if you decide to start trying to do something like overclocking or anything like that, you're going to need those temperatures to be stable. So that's what I got for this time, guys. Appreciate it. See you the next time around.